When the First World War broke out in the summer of 1914, it seemed sudden and shocking. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the trigger of the First World War. But the titanic clash ensued only because Europe had been drifting towards conflict for decades. This video explains why the First World War began, focusing on 4 main causes that made a general war increasingly likely by 1914. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Militarism. One long-term cause of the First World War was militarism, the belief that military power was the main measure of national strength. Across Europe, in the early 1900s, governments invested heavily in armies, navies, and war planning. In Germany, militarism was especially pronounced, building on the previous militarized nature of the Prussian state. This continued under Kaiser Wilhelm II. The army enjoyed enormous influence over politics and foreign policy, while naval leaders like Admiral Tirpitz pushed for a major expansion of the German fleet, bringing Germany into direct competition with Britain, whose global empire depended on naval supremacy. The launch of HMS Dreadnought in 1906 revolutionized battleship design and triggered a naval arms race with Germany. Both sides competed to build ever larger fleets, not because war was inevitable, but because falling behind felt unacceptable. Militarism also shaped political thinking. In Russia, for example, military failure in the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 increased pressure to modernize its forces and prove its strength. Military leaders also developed mobilization theories and detailed war plans, such as the French Plan 17 and the German Schlieffen Plan, a detailed strategy that assumed war with both France and Russia and prioritized speed over diplomacy. By 1914, Europe was armed, organized, and mentally prepared for war, making restraint far harder to sustain. Alliances. A second long-term cause was the alliance system, which divided Europe into rival blocs. Originally, alliances were designed to preserve peace by deterring aggression. In practice, they did the opposite. By the early 20th century, Europe was split between 2 major alliance groups. On one side stood the Triple Alliance, linking Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. On the other was the Triple Entente, which, though not a formal alliance, brought together Britain, France, and Russia due to a series of agreements. These alliances created serious problems. First, they internationalized local disputes. A conflict involving one country could quickly draw in multiple great powers, even if they had little direct interest in the original issue. Second, alliances encouraged risk-taking behavior. States felt emboldened to act aggressively, confident that their allies would support them. This was especially dangerous in unstable regions like the Balkans. During the Bosnian crisis of 1908, Austria-Hungary annexed Bosnia confident of German support, forcing Russia to back down. Finally, from the German perspective, the alliance system of Bismarck, hoping to isolate France and provide a strong eastern bulwark, had been undermined, and Germany was now faced with hostile powers on either side, while Britain had also abandoned its policy of splendid isolation. By 1914, Europe was no longer a collection of independent states. It was a system of interconnected obligations, where a crisis in one area threatened to engulf the continent. Imperialism. Imperialism was another major source of long-term tension. Throughout the 19th century, European powers had competed fiercely for colonies, trade routes, and global influence. An empire had become a symbol of national prestige. Germany, unified only in 1871, felt particularly aggrieved. It possessed a powerful economy and military, but lacked a large overseas empire. On assuming the throne, the Kaiser dispensed with the careful foreign policy of Otto von Bismarck in order to secure Germany's place in the sun, leading to increased friction with other powers. In 1905, Germany challenged French influence in Morocco, expecting Britain to remain neutral. Instead, Britain backed France, leaving Germany diplomatically isolated. The pattern repeated in 1911, when Germany sent a gunboat to Agadir. Once again, Britain supported France, and Germany was forced to back down. Imperial rivalry also encouraged a confrontational mindset. Diplomacy increasingly became about winning and losing, rather than compromise. As the Ottoman Empire declined, competing imperial ambitions turned the Balkans into a flashpoint, where expansion by one power threatened the survival of another. By 1914, imperial competition had helped turn suspicion into hostility. Nationalism. The final long-term cause of the First World War was nationalism, which further destabilized Europe in various ways. In Western Europe, nationalism expressed itself through rivalry between nation-states. France resented its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 71. The loss of Alsace-Lorraine to Germany created a powerful sense of French revanchism, a desire to recover lost territory and restore national honor. This did not mean France wanted immediate war, but it ensured that relations with Germany remained tense and mistrustful. In Eastern Europe, nationalism was even more dangerous. The Austro-Hungarian Empire ruled over a patchwork of ethnic groups, many of whom wanted independence. Slavic nationalism in the Balkans threatened the empire's very existence. Serbia played a key role here. Following its expansion in the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913, it promoted Slavic unity and independence, often with the backing of Russia, which saw itself as the protector of Slavic peoples. To Austria-Hungary, Serbian nationalism was not just irritating. It was an existential threat to its multi-ethnic empire. By 1914, nationalism ensured that crises were framed as patriotic struggles and that national identity was as important as diplomacy. So why did the First World War start in 1914? Because of four main long-term reasons. Militarism normalized war planning and arms races. Alliances turned local crises into continental threats. Imperialism fueled rivalry and resentment. Nationalism intensified fear, pride, and instability. None of these factors made war inevitable on their own. But together, they created a situation so tense that when a major multinational crisis finally came, Europe had lost the ability to step back. The war was the result of decades of pressure, and in the summer of 1914, an assassination would ignite one of the bloodiest conflicts in history. But that final spark is the subject of another video. Thank you for supporting the channel.